What's going on, everyone? My name is Nicholas Merton here at DataDash, and today is June 12th of 2018. Well, folks, it's time for a daily update here on the DataDash channel, and today we have a wide range of topics to discuss here on the update. Primarily, though, we're going to be spending a good amount of time taking a look at the current state of markets, market valuations, as well as doing some technical analysis on the market leaders. But outside of that as well, we also have some key topics to discuss. In regards to the headlines, the first one we'll be looking at has to do with Tron's founder, Justin Sun, going out and acquiring BitTorrent. So I'll be talking about some details that we know from this recent event and why I find it to be quite interesting. And last but not least, I want to spend some good time talking about a recent Swiss initiative that got shot down that has to do with the traditional banking system, what's known as the Sovereign Money Initiative. I'm going to be talking about the details of it, the recent results in regards to the vote, and why I stand where I stand on the issue. So that being realized, we've got a lot of things to talk about, guys. Let's not push it off any longer and dive right into what I think everyone wants to talk about, which is the current state of the market. It's obviously not a fun period in crypto, but many people have been curious as to where I stand in regards to all this. And as always, guys, you guys know I keep it neutral, and I'll be sharing with you guys where I stand on things. So obviously, we scan the market right now. We have a few players in the green. Ethereum Classic getting a lot of exchange listings over the past few hours. Got a Coinbase announcement, as well as Binance putting in a USD Tether pairing for it. And along with that as well, we've got Loom Network and a few others rallying up. But for the most part, markets are generally on the downside for the moment, or keeping relatively neutral to cancel out any positive gains we're seeing in the market. This is generally having to do with the fact that we've seen a recent sell-off in Bitcoin, and Bitcoin is holding steadfast around $7,700. So, or excuse me, $6,700. So we'll be talking a little bit about that later on when we go throughout the video. Going on here, though, to take a look at market valuations, we can see, however, that we're still holding well above our lows in April. And along with that as well, if we take it down to the 7-day, we can see the slice in valuation we got over the past day and a half in markets, where we saw about a $40 billion reduction in market valuations and are now holding generally around $300 billion. I want to spend some time to talk about this and make sure you guys, I know my webcam sometimes gets in the way, but I want to spend some time to talk about really the supposed two catalysts that caused this. And again, guys, this is why I want to tell you guys, don't always rationalize markets with headlines. That's what humans want to do. And the thing about it is I want to tell you guys why I'm not really fearful about this price action sell-off we saw. So there are really two big headlines that came out the other day, and we won't spend the time to really digest them because there's not much details in regards to them outside of what we're going to talk about. But in regards to talking about them now and stuff, without looking at the articles, there's really two serious things that supposedly caused this sell-off in the markets, that caused these two major depletions and valuations. So the first one had to do with supposedly a South Korean exchange known as CoinRail. CoinRail processes, I think, around anywhere from $1 to $3 million in volume a day. So not really one of the largest exchanges in crypto. But along with this as well, had a recent hack of about 40 million of Pandayax, which is an altcoin that's out there on the market. And obviously no hack is good, but at the same time, it was the only coin that supposedly was hacked from the exchange. It was something more, I think, in regards to the end of Pandayax or storing that certain altcoin safely. And because of that, they lost a lot of funds, but they didn't lose any Bitcoin or other cryptos. And along with this as well, we also had the news in regards to supposed announcements that there's some investigations into U.S. or Western-based exchanges like Coinbase and a few others in regards to possibly price manipulation or looking into insider trading, things like that. The thing about it, and the reason why I don't believe that these factors have anything to do or justify with a $40 billion correction in the market, there's a few reasons for that. One, having one altcoin get hacked on CoinRail does not justify this. It doesn't even justify a fraction of it. To have 100, X-fold reaction in the market from a $40 million hack in an altcoin, it doesn't make sense. But along with that as well, we need to spend some time talking about this announcement about Coinbase. Many people said that's the reason for it. The fact of the matter is, everyone, is that this news has been out for some time. Sometimes you'll find that Bloomberg and a lot of their big journalists and websites will go out, or a lot of big news publications will come out and rehash old news that's been out for months. This stuff has been going on for a while. There's been many cases against Coinbase and a few others. Many people, I think, actually put lawsuits of some sort, and I can't confirm this exactly. I think you can find the articles online. There were some cases where people were calling out Coinbase for manipulation when Bitcoin Cash launched on the exchange. And the fact of the matter is that, again, you're going to have things like this come to question when there's these very volatile markets. They're very new, they're very unregulated, and this stuff has been in development for some time. What I think it is, and you can tell, I mean, really, it just goes to show the real issue why prices dropped so much. It was really not even a doubling in volume in the market. The reason why this dropped so heavily is because there's a few players who probably used it as a catalyst to push price down, probably traded on margin. Again, most people are focused on margin trading right now. And along with that as well, this market is very low liquidity, which means that prices can drop very quick. When the order book isn't thick with a lot of buy orders and sell orders, it's very thin, you can clear through price very quickly. If people click the button and say, I want to fill a market order, sell it, That's the thing about it, is that some people just want to fill orders. And in that case, it can really drive down prices. So I would say not to get too fearful off these two headlines, and don't always correlate it with price action, guys. Don't always say that, oh, this must be the reason it happened, and like this is the market evaluating that. Markets are very rational. I think someone had replied this to the tweet I put out, and I think it's a very good point to make, is don't try to always justify the market and stuff. That's why I'm kind of sitting here saying it doesn't make much sense. So going on here to take a look at market dominance, we can see that Bitcoin is steadfast approaching. It's around 39% right now towards that 40% mark. And the key factor here, guys, is that we do not want to see market dominance for Bitcoin go over 40%, because that is most likely going to indicate that Bitcoin is going to break below 6,500, which we're going to be spending some time talking about. That's a key level that I'm going to be watching for in regards to the market. But at the moment, Ethereum still holding relatively strong here, not losing much, really not actually losing anything. It's gaining market dominance, whereas altcoins or other coins in this case are starting to deplete a tad bit, still holding a mass majority of their gains from back in March and April. So going on here, I want to spend some time to really focus in on what everyone's got their eyes on, and that is Bitcoin. I'm going to go ahead here and turn off my moving averages. We'll take a look at that in just a moment here, but they're not really helping us in regards to Intel at the moment for Bitcoin. The fact of the matter is there's really a few different things I'm keeping an eye on, guys. And I want to spend some time first to talk about price action, because I think it's a very important factor. But we'll also jump here to the RSI in just a minute. The fact of the matter is, in regards to Bitcoin, is that for a while I was keeping on this idea that we were looking for a triple bottom in markets. And I got to say, because TA, in regards to analyzing price action specifically, not so much indicators. Indicators are usually consistent. If this, then that. But in regards to TA can be very subjective. And some people would, for example, look at this price action and would see what I see, a triple bottom. Or they would see what I was starting to be convinced that we were seeing, which was the fact that I thought we were building a wedge in price action. So I'll go ahead and draw what I had originally to be completely transparent to show you guys that I was thinking that we had started to see, excuse me, I'll actually bring it up a little bit because I was aligned with the bounce we had gotten off of the chart. And I was thinking that we were starting to see higher lows, which we technically have in the market in a sense, but generally I've been seeing the support around this price range, and the lows have been getting higher, and it looked like, just like at the highs, we were coiling in, waiting for a breakout to the upside. However, we had a collapse through, and it started to get me thinking that we're probably, if anything, guys, this is really the last case we have for a bullish argument in regards to Bitcoin. I'm not going to lie here, I'm not going to be biased. It really is going to be as to whether or not we get a general triple bottom around here. Now, if we close below 6,500, if we get a close down really below this price range that we saw back here, I think we have a decent chance of going a decent ways down, because this really is the last straw here. If we don't hold here, if we don't start getting some upside price action, find price strength confirmation like we've seen over here, and get some big buy side volume, it doesn't look like it's going to be very optimistic for the next few days or weeks, and we might get a final flush out in crypto and down towards having a, for example, at 5K from 2K, that would be a 75% correction. So we might get it. I don't know. Again, as much as I still don't see it, guys, with the amount of buyers that I hear coming in OTC markets and all these different spaces, I mean, again, it doesn't make much sense. But again, like we talked about, sometimes markets aren't always fundamental. And if there's enough volume in a low liquidity market, it can happen. So we always want to keep open to it. So my general strategy at the moment is I'm hoping, again, we've seen this before in the past. One final big flush out of volume here. We've seen it over here as well. And then we get towards the support level, and then we seem to get buyers every time. Now, why is this? Well, it's generally because obviously, this was generally the area where before we had gotten parabolic action in Bitcoin, where we really were more on a steady uptrend throughout the year. But then things started to turn crazy during the later part of November, December, and January. But for the most part, we were able to hold support here. We've been able to hold it over here. Hopefully we can see it over here. But each three cases in the past met something with a very common indicator, and that was being oversold on our RSI. So what's nice about Bitcoin is that historically speaking, for the past, pretty much the past year or 2 years, you can take a look back at Bitcoin, and the RSI has usually been a very good indicator to know when Bitcoin is truly oversold on the daily. And we can see it here. We've been getting a bounce every time the RSI hits 30. We've gotten one over here. We got one over here as well. The RSI held down here. We got one when the RSI stepped down one day below there. We were able to get in there, and you can obviously see Bitcoin almost went back to doubling its valuation. You can see over here, back during the Jamie Dimon FUD around 5,000, the RSI predicted the bottom in the market, as well as over here, back in the summer of last year. What memories did we have and stuff when markets were still young? Back around 30 points here. And this is how things like, again, you don't want to just use the RSI as an indicator saying, oh, okay, in this case markets are oversold, or in the case of reaching the 70-point level, overbought. The fact of the matter is I use a variety of other indicators that we don't have the time to digest, and I don't have the TradingView Pro. I should get that, where I can display a lot more indicators. But the fact of the matter is that you should use a variety of indicators that signal that something is oversold or overbought. And in this case, what I'm analyzing from the market, guys, is that this is oversold here. And if we can hold on this level and we start to get a big buy candle like we saw over here, that's probably going to signal that we've triple bottomed in the market, which is very, very bullish. And again, that might be a catalyst to bring in some liquidity and then lead the market to look for some positive fundamental developments that can push us towards the next market cycle, which is probably, again, I think I'm beating a dead horse here in a sense. I'm really set on the idea that we're going to see an ETF, or at least talks of an ETF this year. So because of that, remaining patient, we'll have to see. We definitely need some more liquidity in this market. That's the fact of the matter, guys. We still continue to take a look here on the weekly. There is no rise in liquidity, but the fact of the matter is as well that we have to keep in mind that any serious price movement we see here, unless it's to the upside with some matching buy side volume, or to the downside with serious matching volume. Again, we have to keep in mind here that this is a very low liquidity market, and that price can move around very easily, as we were talking about with the news earlier in regards to CoinRail, as well as the supposed news of investigation into some of the exchanges. Guys, people find catalyst, and they pray and hope that you are going to absolutely FUD or FOMO off of a few $100s in price action. That's what the leverage traders have been doing every single day for the past few weeks. I mean, just look at these little bumps and movements to the upside and downside. They're playing us like toys when we fall for the FOMO or FUD. Don't think emotionally. Don't play off those short-term swings. I recommend, if you guys, I don't really recommend legitimately, you guys have to do your own due diligence and decision making. But for me, what I always do is I play the bigger swings, and I know that we're getting very, very close, because most general market corrections for Bitcoin historically stop around this percentage of decline. And it's also gotten us back in that rational zone as we were talking about. So if you haven't seen my market cycles video, recommend you guys go watch that. Really would appreciate it if you check it out, see if you can get some value out of it. But again, if we get below 6,500, I'm going to wait until I'm not going to make my third edition on Bitcoin as I've been adding at these lows. I'm going to wait until we probably get around 5K before I make my next edition, if we cannot hold above this line. So that being realized, let's go ahead and take a look at a few more market leaders here, guys. Ethereum to Bitcoin. Let's go ahead and turn the moving averages back on here, see if we can get any intel. So with Ethereum here, the fact of the matter is, at this moment, I'm not bearish. I think more than anything, you could possibly see if Bitcoin collapses below its key support level now, you could see Ethereum come back down here, test around 7 million Satoshis. But at the moment, I think it's going to hold quite well. It's not exactly flagging in price, but I think you're going to get a turn up here, especially if Bitcoin can hold over the next week. But that being said, I think Ethereum's just generally going to hold where it is right now. It doesn't seem to be moving much, taking much direction after it's had its nice uptrend here. Volume's just been relatively low, and it's in the midway between the RSI. Going on here, let's take a look at Ripple. I want to take a look here, a good look at Ripple. I got to say, out of all players in the market right now, one that I know is known to be a momentum mover, one that is known to lead the market in a lot of cases for a lot of the market leaders. Ripple holding nicely on the 50-day, and you know, it's definitely, I guess, in a sense, interpretable in a sense, but I think you could definitely say it's holding here on the 200-day. But again, not much volume trading it. We'll have to see if this will continue to hold. I think it's a matter of just holding on these key indicators and not falling below here and having to recover above the 200-day. That seemed to be a challenge for Ripple in the past. If it can hold here and we start to get, again, a bounce off Bitcoin, this one could definitely start moving, and I think it could easily reach 110,000 Satoshis in the short term. Going on here, let's go ahead here and take a look at Bitcoin Cash. Bitcoin Cash holding on that 200-day again. We've seen that this has definitely struggled to hold on the 200-day and stuff in the past, or excuse me, I think it was the 100-day we used to look at in the 50-day, but on the moving averages here that tend to move sideways because that's just generally how Bitcoin Cash's price action is. If it can hold here, might be good for it. Maybe we can possibly see a swing trade position in this, but at the moment, I think, again, guys, I've been set on Bitcoin Cash correcting for a while. I think you're going to see it come back down to these levels. There's not much of a reason for Bitcoin Cash to be up at the moment. Not enough liquidity, no reason on a fundamental sense, and because of that, I'm not making any trades at the moment. All right, going on here, let's go ahead and take a look at number 5, EOS. EOS collapsing below the 50-day. We are starting to see some serious volume, the highest levels of volume we've seen since back here in early May in regards to some of the correction before the mainnet launch. However, the thing I'm looking for here more than anything, and I think it would be very, very healthy if we've already gone through and correcting this much, would be to see a re-entry towards this level where we made our addition in EOS down here around 140,000 Satoshis. And I think you could get that in a looming market right now where we're seeing if Bitcoin can hold key support, if we get some more volume coming in as this continues to roll over. If it looks like on the hourly it's been rolling over here. If this continues to roll back down, I think you could easily see it. So I would definitely wait before I made any serious additions to EOS here and really key in that level of support over there. Going on here, let's take a look at a few more players here. XLM, BTC, Lumens. Let's get it here off of Bitfinex. I swear I keep on making that mistake. Let's go here to Bittrex. We can see here that this is generally kind of wedging in price action. I think what you might see with Lumens here is a contact down on the 200-day. It'd be really great if it rode along here and found support on the wedge again to confirm the wedge pattern and then possibly get a continued breakout on this. There's been a lot of developments with Lumens, so I think it could very well do that. It'd be nice to see the RSI read oversold as it has in the past. Again, look at the RSI right there, going to work, reading a level where you can possibly get a bounce on the play. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at ADA BTC, Cardano. Cardano coming back down again towards what we've been talking about, around 24 to 2,500 sats down here at this range. Again, we're expecting this to continue rolling over and find support on this key resistance back here that we've seen, and support of the past as well. So we might get a rollover. I think, honestly, what you're going to probably get is this come back down, and if we get a rebound over the next few days, it'll double bottom here and continue higher. Going on to take a look at a few more. Icon, BTC, Icon breaking down below that level. It looks like the double bottom isn't the play at the moment. This might continue downwards. A worst case scenario down to, I think, around 2,500 Satoshis. And if not, you know, I think other worst case would probably be around 2,800. Generally, you can see we had some support around here. But at the moment, no serious consistent trend. It's definitely not a pretty chart for Icon. Got to be fair here, guys, at least in comparison to Bitcoin. But we can read that it is oversold on the RSI here, so keep an eye on that. I don't think it'll stay oversold for too long in this market. Going on here to take a look at a few more different players. XMR, BTC, Monero collapsing through one of the Fibonacci levels. We had a flash seller the other day come on to the exchange. Again, it shows you how low liquidity markets can have serious changes in price, guys, when you sell enough on any given exchange. Going here, though, however, we can see that this is collapsing down. I think you're generally going to see, I know this is very bearish for Monero, but I think you're going to see, again, the trend we've been seeing for quite some time, where this comes back down to the lows around 1,200,000 Satoshis for Monero. So be keeping an eye on that. One person asked me about Dash. I haven't been talking about Dash recently. We've been focusing a lot on the protocols, not so much the currency plays. But in regards to Dash, we'd broken out of the expanding channel for some time. and this has been playing lower and lower, but it's definitely good to be buying it, I think, honestly, at a lower range than at a higher range. I'm not going to recommend it at these levels. We'll have to see if the market can hold, but we've seen that we've gotten rebounds many times in the past around 4 million Satoshis. So I will definitely be keeping an eye on this as one of the market leaders, just definitely keeping a look on it. Going on here to take a look at a few players here. Let's go ahead and take a look. I got another specific one people wanted me to look at, Lisk. Here's the thing about Lisk, guys. It's breaking out again, much like we've seen in the past outside of the expanding channel, but it's on the lower end of things. If we get an altcoin cycle, this could very well come back up to this expanding channel's highs and see a very nice Satoshi return of 3x in regards to the sense of its Bitcoin comparative if we got a really nice altcoin cycle and if developments continue with the project. Going in here to take a look at a few protocols at the moment. Nulls BTC. Nulls right now not showing a good sign here. Got to be fair on this one, guys. Did not find support on the 50-day moving average. We needed that for Nulls. Now, it's not the absolute most bearish case in the world. This could still come up and close on 45,000 Satoshis, but we need to see an altcoin cycle move fast. It needs to come in soon, and we need to get liquidity in this because the volume has not come into the buy side just yet, and to confirm the cup and handle. So just gonna be fair, guys. I mean, I like the project, but you know, you gotta be fair. Someone was asking about Zilliqa as well. I'm trying to get a few more different players in there because I know there's been obviously some craziness in the market. I don't like that Zilliqa broke below the 50-day, but could very well hold at this level. We'll have to see if it double bottoms and breaks down. I think the next key level you want to look for here is 1,200 Satoshis, and we'll have to see. I think that'd be good because the general resistance was around 2,400 sats. A nice 50% correction would be probably good for Zilliqa, and price strength confirmation of previous resistance, making it new support. All right, guys, so let's go ahead here. Let's go ahead and take a look at this recent headline in regards to Justin Sun, the Tron cryptocurrency founder. So Justin Sun, along with generally Tron as a project, is pretty controversial, but nonetheless, wherever you stand on it, I still haven't done my full research on Tron itself. I have to go through and analyze it. I was just kind of I ignored it because it was surrounded by a lot of hype during December, and I don't really care much for hype. There's too much of it in the space. Going on here, though, there was a recent report that it had been announced that the company had been sold, BitTorrent had been sold and acquired to Justin Sun. And so there's a lot of rumors as to why he'd want this. The thing about it right now, guys, is that we don't really have much details. We don't know how much he paid for BitTorrent. We don't know why exactly he's eager to get BitTorrent. I think more than anything with BitTorrent, shutting down a lot of its operations over the past few years and really kind of downsizing, I think it made them an easy acquisition target. And with that, I think Justin's probably going to find some kind of means to apply BitTorrent or use the BitTorrent brand with Tron as a project, seeing as that seems like his child at the moment. He's really working on Tron more than anything. I think that's really how he's made his wealth and net worth. But the fact of the matter is that I think at this moment, I think he's going to try and integrate it somehow into Tron, being a media platform. There are, in regards to BitTorrent, there's streaming services. There's obviously, when you torrent something, you use seeds, and you have seeds and leechers and stuff who are downloading, distributing content in a distributed way. It's very similar to blockchain in a sense, which is pretty cool. But the fact of the matter is, in this case, I think it's a nice acquisition. It'll be cool to see what Tron does with it. I'd like to hear what you all think down below in the comments. What do you think Justin's trying to do with it? Have any of you used BitTorrent yourselves? Have you ever torrented something? I think most people have at one point in their life. But anyways, it is very interesting to see that he's gone through and acquiring this. The fact of the matter is, though, is we just don't have much detail, so there's not too much to talk about. But it is definitely something to note and look out for in regards to developments for Tron. But I want to spend some time to talk about this recent new proposal in Switzerland, this new idea of sovereign money, the initiative that was recently turned down in Switzerland, and what it would have meant if it were to pass. Now, as you all probably know, in the sense of hearing terms like Swiss bank account or there's just generally a pretty good understanding across the world that Switzerland is a pretty free area when it comes to finance. It's a haven across the world for taxes, for financial freedom, for all types of different financial innovation across the world. And within Switzerland, however, it is key to note that this decision definitely sends some signals in regards to the reaction from this area, because it's very heavily invested in the banking sector and in finance, obviously, because of these financial freedoms. A lot of banks coalesce in this area. You have UBS, you have HSBC, I think, that has some decent operations there, all types of different banks across the world that house operations in Switzerland. So I want to spend some time to talk about what sovereign money means and why I think it got a rejection. Because, in fact, to be fair, this was voted on, from what I understand, from a direct democracy of people actually going out and having a direct say in this policy. So there was a pretty much only 25% support, whereas 75% rejected the policy. And why is that? Let's talk about what it is first. There's a great video. If you guys don't really get what I'm talking about here, there's a great video from one of the big Swiss media outlets. It's a 2-minute video, explains how it works and what it would have meant, and kind of gives a perspective on it comparative to what we have now in the traditional system of finance. But I'll go ahead and give you a summary. So we have to talk in regards to this policy about the creation of money, because this is what it's dealing with. Who has the authority to create money, and how is that money going to be created? Well, there's really 2 means of how money is created in this world, at least in most developed countries. There's really 2 means. The first one has to do with central banks, and the central banks manage monetary policy. They, to a degree, manage the influx of new money that's printed, and along with that as well, they also manage the interest rates in regards to monetary policy, how much it costs to borrow money from the central banks. But along with that as well, there's a second means that many people don't know about, and it's where most money, or credit in this case, is generally created, and that's known as fractional reserve lending. And this is where a bank can take the amount of deposits that it has. It's customers' money in a sense. So when you put $1 million into a bank, or even $100, doesn't matter, that is considered the bank's reserves. Okay, they have that as deposits in a sense. Sorry, that's the proper term. It's the bank's deposits. And depending on what country you're in, what governance body you're in, what your central bank policies are in regards to commercial banks, those commercial banks can lend out fractionally. They can lend out fractional amounts they can have fractional amounts of the money that they lend out. So I'll give you a good visualization. They've talked about this in a lot of different things. You can watch all kinds of documentaries on it. Look up what fractional reserve lending is to get a better visualization. But basically, it means that I can have, let's say, for example, I have a fractional reserve ratio of 10%. So that means that I only need to keep 10% of what I have in reserves, and I can lend out the rest. But there's an interesting mechanism here. Let's say that I have $100,000 in my deposits. That means I can go lend out $90,000. Let's say there's a guy who wants to buy a new Tesla Model S and he wants to get it souped up. So he's going to go spend, I think it's around like $90,000 or something like that. Or maybe he wants to go buy a few things. Basically, he takes out a loan for $90,000. I lend him $90,000 out. But the thing about it is he's going to deposit that loan in an account under my reserves. Now, the money hasn't moved. He hasn't spent the money. But that $90,000 is technically a part of my deposits. I now have $190,000 in reserve. Out of thin air, I've been able to create money. And with that as well, I can lend out 9/10 of that new $90,000. Whereas if my ratio is 10%, meaning I can lend out 9/10 of what I have, I will end up creating 9 times the original money I had in my vault, hoping that people don't go on for a run on their money. In that sense. That's the whole assumption with fractional reserve lending. It's a trust factor. And this has been going on for a very, very long time, and banks have been doing it for a very long time. The reason they do it is because it generates extra debt, which means extra revenue, which means extra business for them. But this is what's created the boom and bust cycle in economies, what's created the housing bubble, what's created the credit crisis. This is really what's been going on over the past few years, and it's played a big role outside of just the central banks. But what's really interesting here is that only 25% voted on this initiative. And what is that meaning in regards to this stance? What did the proposal have to do against fractional reserve lending possibly? Well, this proposal was going to remove the bank's ability to lend out any money it didn't have in reserves, and in fact, only give money creation power to the central bank of Switzerland. So why did only 25% of people support this? Why did over 500,000 people vote in favor of implementing this new financial system, whereas we still saw millions stand against it? Well, there's some good and some bad in it. The good that would have happened with this, guys, is it would have brought stability back to the financial system in some regard. It would have brought back a sense of trust in this financial system, because there's a reason why we don't go for a run on the bank. They tell you not to run in, and go, get your money out of the bank, because in many cases they will not have the money. That's just the math in regards to fractional reserve ratios. Some countries are all the way down to 0 or 5%. We use 10%, which sounds probably ridiculous as is, but some nations have really low standards for these banks. And along with that as well, we have to keep in mind that, this causes boom and bust cycles. So if we were able to eliminate this, we could have a nice, stable uptrend in markets, nice, steady growth over a long term, and wealth retention. No overinflation in markets, no overabundance of money being created out of thin air. That's why the dollar, as well as so many other fiat currencies, have lost value and trust over the past few years. It's not a good store of value, which is why people bounce to gold. And then I think, again, over the future, you will see cryptos become a store of value, the more well-formed ones. But here's the reason I think why they didn't pass it. The reason why I think you had such a negative voting reaction, where you had over 1 million people vote no on it, was because of the short-term thinking. And the short-term thinking sometimes is important, and in some cases it is avoiding a big issue that they don't want to address. And the fact of the matter is that many people made this steady argument. This is the only argument they made against it, is that it could cause instability, generally speaking. People had it in different wording. People had different perspectives on it. It would be that this would be something that no nation has ever tried, and the modern globalized world, we can't try this. We don't want to be the test subject for it. But the fact of the matter is, the reason why they're scared about it is because they know, maybe not as voters, but as the institutions, the powers that be, those who work in finance, they know that if they did this, bank revenues are going to drop like a rock, because they can't just make easy loans off of creating credit out of thin air. But along with it as well, it's going to stop the party. Okay, that's going to be one of the dominoes that could potentially just tip over the financial system, because when the easy money stops coming, the economy slows down dramatically. And it's because we're on these boom and bust cycles. The fundamentals are not there at the moment. It needs that alcohol to keep going. We always talk about the punch bowl analogy, but it's also like, to use a more crude analogy, it's like an alcoholic. You keep giving the alcoholic alcohol. That's not going to fix the issue. It's just going to wake up with a bigger hangover the next morning. And that's the issue here, is that we're pushing off, we're kicking the can down the road, an issue that is going to get bigger and bigger, and eventually it's going to get so big that there will be no measure. We can't just switch over to the sovereign money initiative. It is going to be brutal. So I think, it's very sad in a sense to see how Switzerland voted on this, but at the same time, it doesn't surprise me. Most people don't understand monetary policy. Most people don't want to take risks for the greater good, and I think many people think in the short term. So I recommend you guys go through, look at some of these articles, hear both sides to it. I get, at the same time, there is some worries in regards to the stability of Switzerland, because it's a very prosperous country for the most part, and they wouldn't want to risk something like that. But I recommend you go through here, learn a little bit about the vote, think for yourself on this, and get an idea on it. And I'd like to hear down in the comments down below what you guys think about sovereign money. Do you think it could exist in this world? Do you think we should go back to possibly having something backing our currency? Do you think that no matter what happens, no matter what the banks do in this sense, it's not going to matter, because cryptocurrencies are here to stay and they're going to eventually replace that system? I believe that's going to be the case in the long term. The more they keep pushing off this kind of stuff, I think we're going to see cryptocurrencies come even faster, when the flaws of that traditional system that haven't been changed will continue to show throughout the cracks and the seams. So anyways, that's it for the video, everyone. Thank you all so much for watching. Let me know what you all think about all this that we discussed. And again, in regards to the market, guys, stay sane. Don't trade irrationally, and understand that markets can move up and down. Trade with a stable mindset. You guys know I'm long-term in the game, and if you guys have any questions, leave it down in the comments and I'll try to get to it as well. All right, everyone, that's it for the video. Thank you all so much for watching, and I hope you all have a wonderful rest of the day. I'll see you all in the next video.